Hello, everyone, and welcome to MyPath for Clinical. My name is Dawn Anderson, and I'm a Managing Director in Deloitte's Life Sciences practice and a leader in our clinical practice. This is my 30th year in the industry in clinical development, clinical operations, with an emphasis on clinical transformation and digital clinical trials. And I've worked in biopharma, med tech, and CROs. I'm joined today by Ryan Hoffmeister. Ryan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Hoffmeister. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of our ConvergeHEALTH business unit. For those of you that are not familiar, you can think of ConvergeHEALTH as about a 6.5-year-old software startup within the four walls of Deloitte's Life Sciences and Healthcare practice. To date, our platforms have serviced 1.5 million patients across 22 different geographies, across a series of different product suites, including our Patient Connect product suite, for patient engagement and patient centricity, our ConvergeHEALTH Miner suite for real-world evidence, our ConvergeHEALTH Safety suite for safety reporting and cognitive case processing, and finally, our MyPath suite for digital health engagement across all of the various stakeholders in this ecosystem. I'll turn it back to Dawn just to get started in a little bit more detail on today's topic, MyPath for Clinical. Dawn?
Thanks, Ryan. So, everyone, we have a couple of key trends that I wanted to talk about today. The first is we're seeing a large focus on patient centricity, making sure our patients have engagement and we're bringing together all of the different components so that they feel like they really are a part of our clinical trials. We also know that we're focused on targeted therapeutics and we're fragmenting patient populations, and it's harder and harder to find clinical trial participants. We've also increased the complexity of our clinical trial protocols. And of course, COVID lately has greatly impacted the ability to run our clinical trials as we traditionally do. Now, on top of all of these pressures, we've got new data coming in all across the spectrum. And this explosion of data is coming in from real-world evidence, electronic health records, but with our increased focus on patient and site engagement and the use of connected medical devices, we expect this trend in clinical data to continue to grow. Now, we know we have clinical pain points. We know that patient recruitment is still a huge challenge, and 80% of our clinical trials don't meet patient enrollment targets. We also know that just joining a clinical trial isn't enough. We need to keep our patients in these trials to the very end to capture their data. And while 20 to 36% of our patients admit to not following the protocol, we actually think that number is much higher. So with these challenges, we're redefining the way we look at clinical trial development. We're seeing a push to digital and mobile technologies. We're also seeing a shift to remote and decentralized trials. That difference between 100% of the visits being on site and moving to some of the data being collected directly from the patient at home. We're using these to search for novel digital endpoints. And maybe most importantly, we're looking at new ways to bring technology to bear to help us enable these clinical trial programs. And with that, we're looking for unified platforms. So moving forward, we really believe that we're going to see an increased trend toward digitization of clinical trials. And we know that these digital strategies and solutions like e-consent and e-COA will continue to proliferate. But with this greater ability to capture patient data remotely, we need to find a way to bring this all together. And while 100% of trials may not be able to go virtual, a lot of their individual visits might be able to capture remote data entry. And this becomes a shift toward decentralized clinical trials, or a hybrid approach. Now, the goal of these decentralized trials is to encourage more patients to join trials by reducing the burden of all of those site visits. We hope that this can increase diversity and enable patients to do remote data capture, reducing the burden. And if they do that, we hope that we drive better retention and ultimately better high quality data and compliance. Now, COVID has impacted the industry greatly, and we know that it's only accelerating this adoption of decentralized clinical trials. So let's look at what's happening. We're seeing the need for technology, platforms that enable both decentralized trials and personalized engagements. So what we're seeing is a lot more mobile and web platforms, the ability to bring patients, investigators, and the sponsor teams like CRAs together in a seamless way to share information and help them guided through that clinical trial protocol. We're seeing a focus on patient direct data capture, seeing e-consents, e-COAs, and connected devices. We're seeing the ability and the need for task lists and tracking, helping both the patients and the investigators step-by-step guide through the tasks and activities in a clinical trial. Obviously, telemedicine and home health visits have been a big part of this growth. The ability to stay connected with their patients, the ability to bring medical people into the home to collect data has been greatly appreciated, especially with our COVID challenges. Now, in the world of compliance, we see that medication adherence is critically important and finding better ways to keep patients taking their medications, as well as symptom tracking, giving them the opportunity to collect data on their symptoms, which hopefully might help the investigators prevent adverse events or other serious complications. Now, you need to bring all this data together with data aggregation and the ability to, with dashboards and analytics, to actually showcase trends and outliers, and to make it really engaging for the patient. We've talked in focus groups with teams about the need for personalized material, something directed directly at the patient to give them back some information about their disease or the clinical trial itself. Now, to really hopefully push compliance, you need to think about behavioral nudges, those behavioral insights, alerts, notifications that help not only keep the patient compliant with the protocol, but hopefully the investigator and their study staff as well. And then finally, last but never least, patient communities, the ability to connect patients together in ways that foster that community and hopefully really drive that sense of staying connected and engaged throughout the clinical trial. Now, as you're bringing these technologies together, I want to share with you some important trends. The first is a single platform, bringing everything together in one seamless user experience. The ability to do all of the information through one mobile app or platform and bring those best in breed solutions together for that seamless experience. But the platform itself has to be flexible. So bringing a modular platform together, allowing different study types, phases, and the global capabilities to really be enabled across your clinical trial portfolio. And finally, that personalization and behavioral insights, enhancing both the sponsor, the patient, and the investigator, so that they all share and see the same information. Now I'm going to hand it back to Ryan to go a little bit deeper in this area.
Thanks, Dawn. I'm going to take us through for the next 5 or so minutes the patient journey of the MyPath platform from the lens of our patient, Danny Jackson. Again, when you think about our MyPath platform overall, this was built to be that one centralized platform under an ISO 13485 compliant quality management system to really meet the needs of these end-to-end stakeholders in the trial. And when we worked to design this over the last 2.5 years, we really put equal weight on making sure that each stakeholder in this connected ecosystem was receiving equal value. Through a lot of our patient groups, we heard a lot of concern and a lot of really frustration in many times around putting their data into a black box. And so when applicable, we looked at ways to give value back to the patient as they go through their clinical trial journey, just as we looked at ways to give value back to the principal investigators, as well as the CRAs and other study and site coordinators. But in the interest of time today, we're going to hit on 5 specific areas as we go through that digital journey for Danny. First, every app and every solution needs a way of consenting in and giving the patient the ability to opt into specific pieces of information as they're going to connect to the trial. So when we look at onboarding and consent, we look at a full informed consent flow through consent statement, terms and condition, privacy notices, and giving the patient the ability to connect with and share potentially additional data that they might choose to donate to the trial, such as electronic medical records connected through their Apple Health Kit or Apple Health Records. The key capabilities here are really, really important. And again, as we learn through all of our work in this space over the last few years, the ability to create multiple versions of consents and expire consents when necessary, having patients re-sign consents, having consent at a site level and noting those differences of consents, and always being able to track that latest and greatest consent, send it to the patient, as well as send it elsewhere within your broader clinical trials ecosystem, really makes it a very robust view into that overall consent process and provides the sponsor with the ability to take multiple different versions of consents and manage them in a centralized platform through a centralized series of services. Once that patient gets through that initial onboarding and consent, I wanted to talk just a little bit about our task management and our detailed daily view. This is essentially going to be a patient's homepage as they go through the trial, and really shows them everything that they need to do for that day to really, help them both adhere to the protocol, as well as reduce what we consider that cognitive load, a patient always having to think about the tasks and the things that they need to do as part of the trial and as part of everything else that they have going on in their life around management of many of their disease or condition, as well as anything else that's happening. So really, this task view is a very simplified list of what do they need to do today for their trial. Gives them notifications to enhance compliance around upcoming medications to take, around quality of life questionnaires or other e-pros that they need to take, as well as kind of helps them through behavioral insights and analytics to personalize that experience based on their past history. So if they have a history of missing medications or taking them slightly afterwards, we can tailor that experience to make sure that they are being notified upfront around those types of things. This daily task view, as I'll go into, also has the ability of configurable customizations for each sponsor so that they can provide additional types of insights to their patient or give additional value to their patient in managing their overall disease state with additional medications, etc. From there, I'll go into that medication adherence view. This medication adherence view we've designed both for a phase 1 through phase 3 study, as well as phase 4 studies and beyond. So there's a lot of different configurations of medications that we can put in here. In the most common situation, a standard trial, this is going to be a medication that's configured through our centralized administration portal with the right color customization, the right pill shape, the right schedule of that medication, and have that pushed through to the patient so that they can manage and really take that medication based on a defined schedule. The study site or the PI can also change that medication schedule based on anything that they see coming through the trial or they see coming through the patient's medical record, as well as any changes to the protocol. So all these medications can be managed centrally. But like I mentioned, this is also configurable so that if a sponsor wanted to provide a patient with additional benefit throughout the trial and wanted to capture other medications that they may be taking, this can also be configured to pull in medication databases and the entire list of medications out there, so a patient can use this as their one-stop shop for all of their medications that they may be on, and really use all these same capabilities around reminders and adherence throughout. Next, I'll go into a little bit of our device data management. And so our applications on both iOS and Android have the ability to connect to a wide series of sensors and other Bluetooth connected devices, as well as med device connectivity, so that we can capture all sorts of different biometric data coming through these devices. And there are multiple ways that we can integrate in here, but we believe in having an open architecture that is modular, and we can plug in different device SDKs or we can connect through standard interfaces such as API aggregators or Apple Health to get all this data into our platform. This also gives our study team the ability to notify patients when these readings need to be coming up based on the protocol, and gives them additional information once they capture it. That additional information can take the form of training and patient resources. And so our content sections within the MyPath for Clinical application have the ability to connect both to kind of centralized study-specific information. So the study team, the site coordinators can populate site-specific or study-specific information up to a patient and have that show up in their library, either here or elsewhere in the application. But in addition, sponsors can provide additional value to patients by populating additional disease-specific or other informational content that, based on the specifics of the trial or the protocol, as long as it does not impact that protocol, could provide additional value to the patient. And we have the ability through our business rules engine to populate that information on a very personalized level. So like Dawn was talking about, to really continue to provide value, continue to have that application be sticky, and hopefully then have that translate into an increased protocol adherence, we have the ability to populate content into the app based on the patient doing one thing in the app one time, the patient doing one thing in the app multiple times, or the patient doing one thing, multiple things in the app multiple times. So a very rules-driven configuration of content coming through. Finally, in addition to all of these platform capabilities, in addition to the CRA portal, investigator portals, and the admin portal, within ConvergeHEALTH, we've really built an ecosystem of relationships in the marketplace, because we realize that all clients want to bring the best of breed technologies, processes, and data into this equation for their patients within clinical trials. So we have a relationship of a number of different patient data sources that include eCOA, imaging, and geo-tracking data sources that we can pull in. We have relationships with device as a service companies and other connected device companies, companies that are working on manufacturing devices or connecting various device SDKs in, so we can quickly and easily plug these in to an overall solution. We also have a whole ecosystem of enablers around home health, telemedicine, virtual sites. So for those things that are not able to be done digitally, we can pull in additional capabilities that have nurses and home health aides going. And finally, those home health services round out that overall ecosystem. It's also worth noting just briefly, we are a firm believer within ConvergeHEALTH of open architectures and standards within the ecosystem. And so our MyPath for Clinical solution leverages a number of supporting standards, such as HL7 FHIR for interoperability with healthcare, and the CDIS standard for interoperability with other clinical data systems, so that we really can plug in and integrate a wide range and variety of data sets coming into this. Lastly, we've been investing heavily over the last 3 years in our quality management systems within ConvergeHEALTH, and our MyPath for Clinical system is built under a fully ISO 13485 compliant QMS. And so we have the ability of leveraging that QMS to provide support for clients that are looking to bridge into Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 medical devices. And our MyPath solution is also on file with the FDA, where we submitted a design master file last July, so that, you know, as we're going through 510(k) submissions, et cetera, we can always refer back to that design master file.
So thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about MyPath for Clinical. And as we end, I'd like to ask everyone the same question. When it comes to decentralized digital clinical trials, are you and your company prepared to embrace the new normal? Thank you so much for your time and attention. And if you have any questions or would like to see a demo, please reach out we'll look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
Thanks.